What is going on, guys? The Champ Strider here, and I cannot take credit for today's video. I gotta give credit where it's due. So this video goes out to Beef Delight, who started a bunch of discussions over on Reddit, doing tier lists of the different weapons in the subclasses. So today we're gonna look at the Man-at-Arms, and we're gonna have a discussion like they did on Reddit about how I would rank these weapons. Because while Beef did a great job getting the community involved, I think the tier list was not so good. I have a feeling we haven't been in any lobby that's not normal team objective. So let's look at the Man-at-Arms today and talk about which weapons are actually the best if you want to do good in a lobby that has other good people in it. All right, let's hop in. And before we do, subscribe, because this is the place to be if you're into medieval games, whether it be slasher or other, because it's news, guides, and all that good stuff. All right, so let's start things off by looking at the list that got the discussion started, and that is the one posted on Reddit. And I think there are some real big inaccuracies here. For instance, I think probably you can make an argument that the best weapon on the class is not in the S tier, so immediately it jumps out as having some errors. So let's hop in and start ranking some weapons right here, right now. All right, so let's start with the weapon that gives some of the highest reward in the game, but it also takes, I would say, some of the least amount of skill to use. You don't need that much mechanical mastery to do well with it, and that is the one-handed spear. The one-handed spear, you can make an argument for TO is probably the most oppressive one-hander in the game, because it has range, it has speed, and it hits decently hard, and it's also very easy to use. The only reason that the one-handed spear doesn't get banned or seen more in comp events is because the two-handed spear, you could make the argument, is the most oppressive weapon in the game. So that is an absolute S tier weapon, and it deserves its spot. Sticking with our A tier, okay, we're gonna go with, in my opinion, the best weapon on the Footman class, and that is the Morning Star. We call it the gamble stick, right? This thing is super fast, but absolutely messes up knights, does really good damage against them. And blunt weapons on one-handers are really good, because you generally don't have the 1vx potential that you have with something like an axe or a messer or something. So it's not too punishing not having the swing through. And sticking with that, you gotta put almost its clone of a weapon right there with the mace. It's almost the exact same thing, very similar. So if you use either one of them, you're good. But I will say the Morningstar just looks a little bit more badass. All right, let's move to the A tier here, and we have the one-handed axe. This weapon is really, really good one-on-one because it has speed and it hits hard. The reason that you can't put this in the S tier is it is an axe, meaning it's supposed to fight more than one enemies in theory, except it's not great at doing that because the thing has extremely short range, so it's more of a 1v1 weapon. But this thing, it can slap. It's a very, very quality weapon. Now, sticking with that A tier, we're going to put a classic up here, and that is the one-handed sword. The one-handed sword always, it kind of goes into that good at everything, maybe not great at anything category. Very good one-on-one weapon. Can be used a little bit in group fights because it does swing through and have a little bit more range than the axes. But ultimately, I feel like it doesn't have the stopping power of something like a Morning Star. And in extended big confrontations, it's not the best weapon to pick, but it is a very good weapon. So it's going to be an A tier. Great one-on-one weapon, by the way. Sticking with that A tier, we're going to put a weapon that I think is underrated in TO, and that is the Rapier, which is so good at isolating people who are one-on-one and picking them off quickly. Especially your average TO player is not ready for the speed of the Rapier, and I feel like with Rapier, you think Fly Swatter, right? Like, it doesn't do that much damage. Not true at all. The Rapier stabs absolutely bang, and you can get away with just running around, like moving to the side of people, spamming away with light and heavy stabs, and you can do some pretty considerable damage. I think it's actually one of the better footman picks in the game, and it's a great weapon that I think is underrated. And hot take, I would take the Rapier any day of the week over the one-handed sword, but it's going to also be an A tier weapon. Very good. Now let's go to that B tier, and one of the most balanced weapons in the game, and I really love using this weapon. So much fun. Has one of the best specials you're going to find on a weapon in the game, too, because it confuses people that it looks like an overhead, and that is the Heavy Cavalry Sword. And with Heavy Cavalry Sword, what you're really getting is range on a one-handed weapon. You also get some pretty good swing manipulation that you won't get on some of the other one-handed weapons. I think it's a really good, a really balanced weapon, but there is one problem with it, and that is it's a bit of a pea shooter. The weapon does not do a lot of damage, and especially in lobbies where you're going against a lot of good players and you really need to be able to finish things off, like just taking 4 or 5 hits to kill someone, it's too long when you're going to get mobbed by other quality players in the next second or two. You need to be able to isolate kills. It is a very good weapon. If it had a tad more damage to it, just a tad, I think it would actually be one of the better one-handers in the game, but it doesn't and it never will. So it's a solid B tier weapon, very balanced, quality weapon, but not in the top. Now, sticking with that kind of B tier for the Footman, I'm going to go with the Falchion, and I saw a lot of people on Reddit who are Falchion lovers. This weapon had a lot of users when the game first came out. You don't see them too often now because it's in a weird spot where it's not quite as good one-on-one as the one-handed sword, but it also was one of the longer one-handed weapons, deceivingly long, when the game came out, right? Those stabs that you can hit you from a mile away, it feels like. It seems like you always think you're safe and the stab hits you, and that is the Falchion. But what it doesn't have is more range than the heavy cavalry sword. So it's in this weird spot where if you want to go for a more stronger 1v1 weapon, you're going to go with the the one-handed sword. If you want something with some range that you can drag through to multiple enemies a little bit easier and get some swing manipulation, you're going to go with the heavy cavalry sword. So you don't see too many people use the Falchion, even though it is a quality weapon, but there are just much better options on the class. I would rank it as the bottom of the B tier. Now, if you need a secondary weapon, I mean, the short sword, it can do the trick. It's by no means a good weapon. Again, it suffers from having poor range and also being a little bit of a pea shooter. That being said, it is fast. So against your average type player, you can abuse that and just kind of feint around quicker than they can react, gamble. You can do it all. So it's a usable weapon. You can go out with this and frag a public lobby with no problems, but it's by no means anything like the weapons listed above. That's why it's a secondary. Speaking of secondaries, right, the knife, not a good weapon. But that being said, you can gamble fuck someone when you get disarmed because it is extremely quick. So you can play around with that. People get scared of the quick weapons and they start panicking to feints real quick. So could you take a knife and absolutely frag the hell out of a normal team objective lobby? Absolutely. Does that mean that it's a good weapon? Absolutely not. Now, I do want to hear from you guys down below. Is there any changes you would make for the list, or if you want to argue on the validity of a weapon that I said is not that good? The comment section is where you're going to do that. Just know that, of course, you guys are 100% wrong if you challenge my opinion. Now, I'm just playing. Go to the comments, guys. Much love. Champ out.